In this chapter, we are going to create a practical example in order to demonstrate ostinato. In our first example, we have an ostinato passage that is created on two instruments, the viola and the cello. We could even create an ostinato on a single instrument, even the contrabass alone, but that would be less common. We can see in the score that there are accents, and this is critical in ostinato passages. They will give motion to a repetitive pattern. As we can see, this passage will be played in 12/8 time. In classical music, it is common to have many time changes within a piece of music. You might have one bar of 3/4, then two bars of 5/4, and then a bar of 12/8. This occurs much less in popular music, but in classical music it certainly is the case that time changes are very common. Certainly if you are working to film, then your music will have to fit what is on the screen, and so time changes will almost certainly occur. The first instrument I will play in is the cello. This is often used as the driving instrument that plays for the entire section in, for example, ostinato passages. So it seems like a good place to start. Of course, this might not always be the case, but a good place to start would be to choose an instrument that is central to the rhythm and plays throughout the ostinato passage. If I play the cello, you can clearly hear the accents. Of course, there is another possibility, which would be to play without accents and to go into your editor and add the accents afterwards. This may have the advantage of you being able to be more accurate with your accents, and even to vary them somewhat to create variations on the pattern. Now we can record to the click. When listening back, we could really hear the bow on the strings of the cello. And it clearly reminds us of many film scores in the effect it gives. Now we can double it with the viola, and hopefully you can follow it here on the score. Now, of course, this could repeat for half a minute or however long was needed. And other instruments could play over the top. But what often happens with ostinato passages is that they will grow in dynamics and volume. To do this, we don't really want to adjust the volume too much directly, but we can create this increase in tension and volume by adding instruments to the ostinato passage. And in our example here, the second violin is added to the passage. I'll keep the click active, because even if I already have a strong rhythmic element with the cello and viola, it is important to keep focused on being in tempo. The violin we are using here is a nice sounding violin, but it lacks a little bit of attack. However, for the purposes of this demonstration, it is totally acceptable. The violin is playing a repetitive pattern and is not simply playing the same as the cello and viola. In fact, even with ostinato passages, separate instruments do not have to play the same rhythm, or even the same number of beats or bars. This is obviously more demanding than playing in parts that play together. So now I'll play violin 1. And finally, I will play the contrabass in, whilst remembering to play it 1 octave lower than it appears in the score. The score shows it 1 octave higher than it really is. At the end I made a slight error, so I'll simply record it again. And now we can listen to it all at 160 BPM and without the metronome. So with this increase in tempo, it clearly gives us the desired effect. This type of pattern could also be used in other forms of music for dramatic effect. And also the fact that sample libraries or virtual instruments have become commonplace means that more and more producers and artists have access to these type of sounds and classical techniques, such as ostinato.